A delegate recently came to me with a question that was so good I thought it was worth sharing. Their issue was they had a table like this showing the start of the month and the number of transactions that had taken place. They had another page that then showed each of their customers from that particular time period. The issue came in when what they wanted to do was actually drill using an inactive relationship. There are two dates: the purchase date, when you walk into a store and pay with cash, or when you pick up the item. The payment date is when the money actually comes through. So if you paid with a credit card, sometimes it takes a few days to trickle through to the vendor. What they want to do is they want to first see how many of those payment dates there are, and secondly, be able to drill through and see that. Well, the first thing you have to do is make sure you have a relationship to use. We have the relationship between the calendar date and the purchase date. That's not enough for us. So we're going to connect the calendar date and we're going to join that onto the payment date, since that's what we want to drill using. Switch back through. Now, let's create a measure working out what that payment date figure is. Right click, new measure. This is going to be count payments equals. The most important function, calculate, allows us to change filters. The expression I want to perform is count the purchase ID. That's the unique identifier, so every row is going to have one. Then use relationship. Use relationship lets us switch which relationship is active for this expression. I want to join on the payment date and the calendar date. So instead of using the purchase date when you walked into the store, I'm using the payment date, i.e. when the money came through. Hit return, add that into your visual. We've now got how many purchases were made and how many payments were made. And often we see a little bit of lag as the transaction doesn't always match up to the payment. So far so good. What I'd like to do now is drill through. I've got 52 transactions, 26 payments. I would like to drill through and see those payments. When I look at my data though, I can see I'm actually not looking at the payments, I'm looking at the purchases. To remind ourselves of what the payment figure should be, let's just duplicate our card and add our count payments into there. Okay, that's the goal, 26. So why is this not happening? Well, it's not happening because this visual is still using that purchase date relationship. If you've played around with Power BI before, you'll know that Power BI suppresses any blank rows. We're going to use that to our advantage. The first thing we have to do is return the customer ID or purchase ID of every transaction we want to keep. The code for this is very similar to our last measure. So I'm going to copy this, create a new measure, and I'm going to call this payment IDs, and I'll paste my code in. The major difference is I don't want to count the purchase IDs. I want to return the selected value. Selected value returns the only item in a column. So in this case, the filtered purchase ID. I'm telling it I want to use the different relationship, the inactive relationship. Hit return. And add this into your visual. And just like that, I've now got only the payment IDs for those that have the payment date within this month. If I want to check that, I could count my customer ID. So I'm going to go to the purchase table. I'm going to drag my purchase ID in, and I'm going to count that. So this looks like it's giving me 52 because it's just forced all those extra rows to appear. But if I tell this to filter using my payment ID and tell it not to be null, and apply that, I'll see I do indeed have just 26. Once you're happy with that, you can either get rid of your purchase ID column, or you can remove the payment ID column. But remember, if you are going to remove the payment ID column from your visual, you will need to keep the filter. So if I go down here and remove payment IDs, because I've applied the filter, it will still work. If I hadn't applied the filter, all I need to do is grab that payment ID, add it into the filters, and again, is not blank, apply filter. And just like that, I've got my 26. When you're happy, remove the purchase ID. We don't need to see that. We're happy with our numbers. And remove any of your supporting visuals. And that's it. We use this measure technique to allow us to drill using a different or inactive relationship. You could use this across several different pages. So maybe on this page, we want to drill using the payment date, but maybe on a different page, we want to actually have the purchase date. All you would need to do is remove that filter, and you're straight back to looking at all of your purchase dates. Now your user can drill either to the payment dates or to the purchase dates. I hope you found this short useful. If you plan on using this, do let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.